creatures of reason. And by using reason, we can cure ourselves of emotional excess. Purged of both hope and fear, we find courage in the face of helplessness, insignificance, and uncertainty. Laura Marling says, I've been quite fascinated by the relative insignificance of human existence, the shortness of life. We might as well be a letter in a word, in a sentence, on a page, in a book, in a library, in a city, in one country, in this enormous universe. And that kind of fear and insignificance has kept me awake at night. And if you aren't depressed and downcast enough by those two quotes, here's one more from William Thomas. Anyone who thinks they're important is usually just a pompous moron who can't deal with his or her own pathetic insignificance and the fact that what they do is meaningless and inconsequential. Ugh. Well, I suppose I had it coming when I looked up quotes on insignificance. And these three quotes came from a site called Brainy Quote. But folks, if that's all I thought my life was, I'd probably do something to my brain other than use it for quotes. And then I changed tax, and I typed in human significance, and I was home again. Because Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, What on Earth Am I Here For?, had this to say about our real significance. Without God, life has no purpose, and without purpose, life has no meaning. Without meaning, life has no significance or hope. But Rick would go on in his book, Life with Purpose, The Purpose-Driven Life, What on Earth Am I Here For? Rick would go on to explain that with God, life has meaning, significance, and real purpose. And we're going to talk about a little man who learned that lesson today. Luke 19:1. He, Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through. Often, we either breeze through life or sleepwalk through life, not realizing the significance of what's going on around us or recognizing how big the present moment could be. Jesus was coming through the town of Jericho, going to Jerusalem. About a half day's walk if you don't stop. It's about 15 miles. But this would be the last time the Savior walked that way. He'd gone that path many times before, but this was his last time. Jesus was going shortly to the cross, and this would be the last recorded chance for those in Jericho to see Jesus. Behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. Everybody here, I'll wager, everybody has felt small at one time or another. Can I get a witness? Overlooked, insignificant, not quite measuring up, not quite good enough, picked last for the game, didn't receive a Valentine, standing against the gymnasium wall at the dance. That's how Zacchaeus felt. Now, Zacchaeus, we're going to find out his name means pure. He was indeed a tax collector, and tax collectors were disliked and despised by some because if they were Jewish like Zacchaeus, they were considered sellouts for collecting taxes for the Romans from their fellow Jews. And a typical Pharisee, a religious leader's typical prayer would include thanks that God had not made the male prayer, the Pharisee, neither a woman nor a tax collector. Sorry, ladies, you didn't. That was their culture. Jesus came to change that culture. That was the culture. So it's quite likely that Zacchaeus was not only not well liked, but maybe even hated. He was rich. We don't know if that was simply the fair substance of his pay, or if, like a lot of tax collectors, he cheated and charged extra taxes. But he was rich. But though Zacchaeus was small and not well liked, he did have several things going for him. Because he was a tax collector, he had power over others because he could affect their incomes. And he was rich, and that could afford him a measure of respect to his face, if not behind his back. So Zacchaeus could have played it safe. But what was it about this itinerant carpenter turned preacher, Jesus, that fascinated this little man, Zacchaeus? Was it because Jesus seemed to take the side of the underdog and the oppressed against religious and imperial bullies? Was it because Jesus looked past what others saw on the outside? Think about the woman at the well, or the woman caught in adultery, or the demon-possessed man, just to name a few. Was it because Jesus had called another tax collector, Matthew, to be among his 12 apostles? We don't know. We don't know what it was about Jesus that spoke right into Zacchaeus' head and heart. What is it, Christian, about Jesus that speaks to you? When he came into your life and changed you, what were you going through, Christian? Feeling insignificant? Feeling small? Feeling unworthy? And then something in Jesus spoke to you and changed you. Whatever it was, Zacchaeus had to see Jesus, right? I must tell Jesus. Well, Zacchaeus says, I must see Jesus. Now, he couldn't or didn't offer Jesus some of his money for a private audience, like the religious teacher Nicodemus, who had requested an audience, or who had come to Jesus at night. He couldn't buy his way in. He couldn't buy an appointment. Jesus was headed to the Passover, and time for Jesus, like Zacchaeus, was short. So he ran ahead and he climbed out onto a sycamore limb. Climbing out on a limb for Jesus. Let me ask you, in your life, do you play it safe in your faith? Or do you climb out on a limb? Look, I'll tell my friend or neighbor about Jesus later. And later never comes. I'll give that gift. I'll send that card. I'll make that phone call when? Later. I won't call that family member because I don't want to risk getting hurt. I won't volunteer for that ministry because I got too much to do at my job. I'm not coming to Sunday school. I'll maybe come to church, but I'm not coming to Sunday school because it's too much of a hassle getting the kids ready. Maybe when things settle down, look, just let me stand among the crowd and observe from a distance. But that wasn't good enough for Zacchaeus. Whatever it was in him that called to him and said, now's the time. I've heard about this guy. I got to meet him. Zacchaeus risks embarrassment, laughter, ostracism, ridicule. When he gets up in that tree and gets out on that limb, think he's probably having to pull his robe up, get out on that branch. Maybe he's trying to hide behind the limbs and the leaves, but maybe somebody notices, Mama, look up there. Look at that short man up there. He gets out there just to get a glimpse, just to see Jesus, and all of a sudden, Jesus stops. And I can imagine the crowd, can't you? When this holy man, this miracle worker, Jesus, the Messiah, stops and looks up at this tax collector, and all the people went, ho, 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 right? Dog down below, cat walking the fence. Oh, it's on now. Give me the popcorn. I got to see what's going to happen. I'm sure the people were going, oh, he's going to let Zacchaeus have it now. Can't wait to hear what Jesus says. I can't either. What's he say? When Jesus came to the place, he looked up at him and said to him, Zacchaeus? Oh, yeah, he does know his name. He knows your name. He's known all about you. He made you. He's talking to you right now. He calls you by name today, in this minute. Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. Notice that, hurry. Don't wait another second. Don't wait another day. Zacchaeus didn't know this was his last chance. Jesus did. Hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. And you can see Zacchaeus going from trepidation to exaltation. You can see the Pharisees and the folks who had to give money to this tax collector going, yeah, Jesus, yeah, give it to him. Ah, what? That's what you're doing, Jesus? And it says that two reactions came about instantaneously. There are two reactions to God's grace in this world, either gratitude or grumbling. Zacchaeus got out on a limb to find that his faith was being rewarded. See, faith always has to risk something. Faith risks. Faith takes getting out of the boat and walking on the water. Faith takes telling your friends, I'm following Jesus now. Faith takes changing your life in your way. Faith has a risk to it, doesn't it? And we don't want to always risk because we're not sure if we're going to be rewarded. Well, I can tell you in the Bible, faith is always rewarded by Jesus. He hurried. He came down. He could have said, I'm a tax collector, Jesus, and you're just a poor preacher. He came down. And once he came down from his perch, we all want to put ourselves on the pedestal, don't we? On the perch. We say we're insignificant, but we crave to be on the perch. When he came down off the perch and came face to face with Jesus, what did he find? He was smaller and Jesus was greater. Folks, doesn't matter your height, Jesus is always going to be greater. He came down and he received Jesus joyfully. Folks, I can tell you, if you come to Jesus today, you may come scared, you may come confused, you may come worried, you may come not knowing what's going to happen in your life. But if you'll stay with him, you will find joy. Real joy, joy that lasts, joy that cannot be taken away from you. But when the crowd saw it, they all grumbled. Grumble, grumble, grumble. And you know any grumblers in your life? Raise your hand if you know grumblers in your life. Yeah. They said, he's gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. That's the crux of it, isn't it? How can Jesus save that guy or that girl? And we've all got a that guy or that girl, don't we? Right? When we compare our sins to their sins, they always look worse. How can Jesus, notice what they said, they don't even understand the extent of their grumbling, but isn't this beautiful? Jesus has gone in. Folks, Today is a chance for Jesus to go in, to come in, to invite himself into your heart. That's what he's doing, for him to come in where you are, to be the guest of a man. Jesus will never be an intruder in your life. If you don't want him in your life, he won't be. You can, when you walk out of here, you never have to have another dealing with Jesus. He'll never invade or intrude where he's not asked to be or welcomed until you breathe your last. Then you will find out who has authority and significance. Then he will be the Lord of judgment and not the Lord of salvation. So he hurried, and they said, we can't believe he's gone in to be the guest of a man who's a sinner. Guess what? If Jesus comes into any person's life on this whole planet, from the beginning with Adam and Eve till the time there's the last person born, if Jesus goes into their house, he's going into the house of a sinner. This Ray Farrow fella, sinner. Sinner, 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 saved by the grace of Jesus, made a saint. That's me. I have to admit it. Now you know, as if you couldn't tell. But Zacchaeus' reaction is not grumbling, but gratitude. Zacchaeus says, behold, Lord. It's a way of saying, behold, look, I'm laying it all out. Behold, hey, Lord, check this out. Look, Lord, you are different. Nobody else wanted to have anything to do with me, but you've asked me to come into my house. Look, Lord, half of my goods I give to the poor. When did Jesus ask that? Not a word, not a whisper, not a whit of the first denarii has Jesus spoken about. Give away half before you come to me. That's the only way. Jesus never gave him a tithing sermon up in that sycamore tree. He didn't mention it. But Zacchaeus is so filled with gratitude that he says, Lord, you've made an immediate change in my life. I now see that I've put my job before God, and I don't want to be that hated guy. Lord, if you can love me, you can transform my job, my family, my friends, my future. You can do it, Lord. It's as if a switch has turned in Zacchaeus' life. And then he says, if I have defrauded anyone or anything. He doesn't admit to it. We don't know for sure, but he says, if I've cheated anybody, Lord, as a Jewish guy, I still remember what Exodus 22:1 says. If you steal a sheep, you got to pay back fourfold, 4 sheep. He says, if I've stolen, taken where I shouldn't have, I'll fulfill what your word tells me to fulfill. And Jesus says to him, Zacchaeus, today, right now, salvation has come to this house. And I'm sure the grumblers went, Rrr! Since he also, Zacchaeus, whose name means pure, and in the Beatitudes in Matthew, it says what? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Zacchaeus sees Jesus, or rather sees Jesus, and suddenly Jesus transforms his heart and says, I'm calling you back to who you should be, to your real name, your real purpose, your real destiny. This is you, Zacchaeus. I can make you pure. This is what he came to do. Zacchaeus is just as much a Jew, a Hebrew, a son of Abraham, one of God's chosen covenant people. He's just as much as any of you standing by a sycamore tree. And everybody else went, well, I don't know about that. And Jesus says, it's not your call, baby. It's mine. It's mine. Because the job, the hope, the passion, the ministry, the love, the life of Jesus Christ The reason he came is not just to seek you, not just to find where you're at, but to save the lost. Jesus' very name means God saves. But before he can save you, you got to know he's looking for you. He's seeking you. He wants you. He invites you. Zacchaeus, hurry, come. Zacchaeus, hurry, come, for I must. Oh man, I loved when Jesus said to me, Ray, if you're going to have life eternal, if you're going to have a real life in this life, I must come to where you are. And I said, finally, in tears, yes, you must. You've come not just to seek me, but to save me. You must come to my house. You must come to my job. You must come in my car. You must come and take my eyes, my heart, my hands, my will. You must come and save me because I'm lost. But Jesus, with you, I know I can be found. I know I can have direction. I know I can have significance. Do you want significance? Do you want salvation? Do you want to know that you have a purpose, a plan, a place, a presence with God, not just in heaven, but here today? There's only one way. You've come. I didn't even make you scramble up a tree. You got to sit on nice pews. But everybody has a time in their life when they're just playing it safe. Well, the time for safe is gone. Kenny Loggins told you, if you're old enough to remember, nowhere to go, no way to hide. This is it. Make no mistake where you are. This is it. The waiting is over. This is it until it's over and done, one way or another. This is it. This is your time. Come down off the tree. Come down off your pedestal. Come up from your face thinking that you are just too insignificant and God can't save you. Stand up. Come to Jesus and say, today salvation is coming.